Y'all, it's time to start preserving all of these vegetables that we've been harvesting. Hello everyone, and welcome to Kim's Cozy Corner. We have been harvesting for over a month now, and y'all, we have preserved very little. The only thing we've preserved are a few potatoes, and it's time for us to get busy, or I'm not going to have any more refrigerator or freezer space to put all of this food. So for today, on this video, I'm going to show you how I like to can my beans and my greens. The first thing we're going to start off with is going to be, let's just go ahead and get our pressure canner set up. So what I like to do is follow the Ball Book of Canning. There'll be a link to it below if you're interested in the Ball Book of Canning. But I am going to follow the recipe in here for green beans. Now, these are wax beans and purple beans mixed together, but green beans, that's the recipe we're going to follow. It is a low acidic food, so you need to pressure can your beans. You can water bath can your beans, but you're going to have to add some vinegar or some type of acid to your food. Pressure canning, of course, is the safe way to do it, and you don't have to change the taste up by adding vinegar or some other chemical to raise the acidity of beans. So we are going to pressure can our beans today. For the greens, I'm just going to show you how I freeze them. It's such a simple process, but I can my greens, which would be pressure canning them, or I can freeze them. And I prefer to freeze my greens because they typically don't stay around very long. So since we'll be pressure canning, I will be using my Presto digital pressure canner. Here's a picture of my Presto digital canner. Now I have 3 different types of digital canners. And I like the Presto digital canner because I can water bath can in it and I can pressure can in it. So it's good for both, and I don't have to lug out multiple pots while I'm in the preserving season. So that's the one we're going to do. Now don't get me wrong. When I got a whole bunch of stuff going on, I will turn all 3 of them on. But today we're going to use the Presto digital canner. There'll be a link below to the product if you're interested in it. And I got it on Amazon, so that's where it will be. So we're going to go get that set up. It's been a long time since I've had y'all in my kitchen, so it feels kind of weird to be talking to you in the kitchen. So, and I've had my kitchen remodeled back in the winter, and I don't think I did many videos after I had it remodeled, but we are in the kitchen. So here's my Presto digital canner. I always have my little note. This is a little cheat sheet for me. If I'm water bath canning, it tells me how to do it real quick. If I'm pressure canning, it tells me how to do it real quick. And I really only need to use it right in the beginning of the season because after that, I get used to it again and then there are no issues. But when I'm first starting out, I forget. Y'all, I'm old. Sometimes I feel old. Anyway, so to pressure can, the first thing I need to do is put in 3 quarts of water or fill the inside of the pot up to the water line. There is also a canning rack to put in the bottom of the can. So I have the rack in there. I've already put my 3 quarts of water in. After I put the 3 quarts of water in, I'm supposed to plug it up. So we're going to follow the directions. I'm always telling y'all to follow directions. So that's what I'm going to do today. All right, it's not really saying anything. It's asking me if I want a pressure can, and that is what I want to do. So I want to press the control knob to say, yep, I do want a pressure can. So now it's saying, well, how long do you want a pressure can for? Well, I know I need to pressure can my beans it's 20 minutes for pints and 25 minutes for quarts. And I'm canning in 1.5 pint jars. So we're going to put ours on 22 minutes. We're going to hit it somewhere in the middle. So 22 minutes. Well, maybe I won't because that's not even an option. I can only go up by 5. Well, we're going to put it on the 25 minutes then. I prefer to over pressure can than under pressure can. So we'll put it on 25 minutes. The Ball Book of Canning says 20 minutes for pints, 25 minutes for quarts, and I have pint and a half. So we'll put it on 25 minutes just because that's my only option. And then I'm supposed to hit my little button there. And now it's telling me to insert the jars. So we're going to insert the jars. When you go to insert the jars, it says fill your jars halfway up with water, which I did. I'm always trying to save a step. I know you don't want to wait all day for me to get this thing together and get it going. So here's the lid and here's the regulator. It says remove the regulator, which I've done. And now we're going to put the top on. Because what we're doing is warming the jars while I'm in the process of doing the other stuff. So I took the regulator off like it said. It's telling me to confirm that the gasket is on the canner and the gasket is on there. And now it says lower this and lock it, which I've done. And the next, so after I've insert the jars, you hit basically the next button. So we're going to hit the button that says, okay, go to the next step. And that button's right here. So I hit that button and guess what? It's warming the jars up. So while the jars are warming, we're going to get these beans on. Now it usually takes about 20 minutes to warm the jars. And so that's probably all the amount of time I need to blanch these beans. And so to blanch the beans, I just have water in my pot here. I have fresh beans that we picked over the last couple of days. Some of these don't look so hot, but for the most part, they look pretty good. And y'all, I haven't canned anything. So y'all, I washed and broke the beans and put them in the freezer because I knew I didn't have time to do it. So we are going to blanch all of these, the frozen beans as well as the fresh beans. When you're blanching your beans, to do it properly, according to the Ball Book of Canning, if I want to hot pack my beans, and that's what I'm going to do, I'm hot packing my beans. It says that I need to put beans in boiling water. I need to bring the boiling water over medium-high heat and boil it for 5 minutes. That's it, for 5 minutes. After that, I can start filling my jars. So that's it. Now you can raw pack, but I prefer to hot pack. I can get more beans in the jar. I can pack them a little tighter, so I don't have to have quite as many canning jars on my shelf, and I don't have to open quite as many. So one jar can be a meal for my family. So I got the pot on, I got the water getting hot, and while that water is getting hot, let's talk about these greens. Now these greens are collard greens. I'm going to turn my stove on for them as well. So the collard greens, I cut them as I pick them. So if you've watched any of my videos, you know that's how I like to do my collard greens. I bring them in and I wash them really, really well to make sure there is no bugs, no insects or anything like that on them. I can pick off bad spots, but these had no bad spots whatsoever. And once I do that, all I need to do is honestly blanch them so I can get as many as possible in a freezer bag. So I've already had this water on and heating. It was actually boiling. I had to turn it off or all my water was going to evaporate. So we're going to go ahead and get the greens in the pot. So I'm using this pot here for the greens. Like I said, the water's already hot. I just need to get them in the pot. And try not to spill water all over the stove. So the greens are on, and that's it for the greens. Now my water is almost boiling over here for the beans. So I'm going to go ahead and put the frozen beans in now because they're going to need a little longer than my fresh beans because they are frozen. And yes, I'd mix my wax beans, my green beans, my purple beans. And if I had dragon tongue beans, I'll mix them in the pot with them. If I had enough of any one of them when I'm picking them, I wouldn't mix them. But once I get to this stage, I'm putting them all together. And remember, the purple beans are going to turn green. So we will end up with green and yellow beans in this pot when we get ready to can. Now we will let this go ahead and heat up a little bit more, and we will add the fresh beans, and we will wait for the pressure canner to warm all of those jars. Once we get to the next step, I will bring you back. So y'all, I thought I've been recording. I ain't recorded nothing. So let me tell you what I've done. I'm on my third jar. You take the jars out one at a time and you fill them up. In my jars, I like to put salt, and this is an iodine-free salt, so canning salt. I'm putting in a teaspoon of salt. I'm putting in a half a teaspoon of sugar, and I like dilly beans. So I am putting in some apple cider vinegar, and I prefer apple cider vinegar over distilled vinegar, but I'll use either one. But I'm putting in just under a tablespoon into each of the jars. So one at a time, I'm filling these jars up. Once I get the jar full, I am getting the air bubbles out. That's what I use the chopstick for. And removing the air bubbles is an important step. So please don't forget to do that. So there's the 1 inch of head space. I wipe my rims off. I put my lid on. And when you're wiping the rims, you're checking for nicks and cuts and dings and that kind of stuff. Finger tight. Once you got it finger tight, you're going to put it back in the pot. And we're going to follow that step for the rest of these. Now, as far as jars, I use a variety of jars. Mason jars are okay. I mean, the ball jars, they're okay, but they're expensive. So last year, I purchased some of the Azure Standard jars. And y'all, I really like the Azure Standard jars. They're really, really nice. So I have a variety of jars and brands, and I'll make sure I have all of them in the description below for you. As far as lids, y'all, I will use the ball lids if I can get them on sale. Or I will use the ForJars lids. It's just another name brand, and I've had really, really good luck with the ForJars lids. And again, I will have all of this in the description below if you're interested in any of the products I'm using. It's completely up to you. So what do I have in there so far? I have 3 jars, 3 1.5 size jars. This is the 4th one. It will hold, it looks like 7. It will hold 7 1.5 size jars. For the beans, I don't know if this was recorded or not now that I didn't see the recording light on. I only boil them for about 5 minutes, if that long. I really just want the beans to be, oh, that's a flower, y'all. I thought I had a worm. We was getting ready to start over, but that's just a flower. Whoo, y'all, I got scared. Whoo. I'm like, no. I am not trying to can a worm. Now, that worm would be completely sterile. But I'm not interested in canning worms. That was a flower. That was a flower. Not a worm. Y'all know I'd have been out this kitchen. Y'all know how I feel about worms. But anyway, I like to heat my beans up just enough to make them pliable and bend so I can get more beans in the jar. I don't want to have more jars in my pantry than I have to, if that makes sense. And do not skip the step of removing the air bubbles. I can't remember if I told you or not now because I don't know what you heard and what you didn't hear. But you really, really need to make sure you get those air bubbles out because your jar will be done and either the liquid siphoned off of it, or you didn't have enough in it to begin with. And I've had both of those situations before. And I'm going to be honest with you, when I was a young canner, when I first started canning, oh goodness, easily 15 years ago, because my grandmother taught me how to can. I didn't think that was an important step. I'm like, I'm not doing that. But you know what? As you get older, you learn patience. Everything doesn't have to be done in 5 minutes. Take your time, do it right the first time, and you don't have rework. All right, I am going to keep filling these jars, and I will bring you back when I have them all done. Okay, this is the last jar. We're going to get this put in. So I ended up with 6.5 pint jars. So that's how much that big pot ended up being, 6.5 pint jars. So I got all my jars in. I got my lids fingertip tight. And now we're going to put the lid on and go to the next step. And the next step says I need to do is place the lid on. I'm going to make sure I set it down here. I'm going to lock it. I filled the jars, and so now I'm going to hit heat. And what this is going to do is bring this up to pressure. Once it gets up to pressure, it's going to get up to pressure, and then it's going to start counting down for 10 minutes. After that 10 minutes, it's going to beep, and it's going to tell me to put the regulator on. That's it. It's that simple. So we are just going to wait for it to heat up and get to pressure. And I have the regulator right here ready to go when it's time. So I will bring you back. I'll show you that next step when it's time. But again, it's going to first get to pressure, and then we got to wait 10 minutes like you would in a traditional canner or a pressure canner. This is just the electric version. Now that we have the pressure canning going, let me tell you a little bit about what's going on with these greens. So these greens are done. I just brought them to a boil. I let them boil for about 10 or 15 minutes. Honestly, I don't know. I lost track of time. And they are all wilted down. Let's see if I can show it to you a little bit better. They're all wilted down, and that's it. I didn't add anything to it. No salt, no fat, no grease, no nothing. That's it. And we're going to let it cool all the way down. And honestly, I may let it cool all the way down, and I may not put it in the freezer until tomorrow. But that's it. We're going to get a Ziploc freezer bag. We're going to fill it up, and it needs to be a freezer bag. All plastic bags are not made the same. It needs to be a freezer bag, not a storage bag, if you want it to last for a long period of time. I'm just going to be honest with you. So we'll let it cool down. We'll put it in a freezer bag, try to get as much air out as possible, and that's it for the greens. That's it. So now we're just waiting for the beans to get to pressure for 10 minutes. And I will bring you back when we get to that step. I just want to show you that it is now up to pressure and it's counting down. It's going to vent for 10 minutes, and then we will add the regulator. I will bring you back when it gets done counting down. Okay, it's telling me to put the regulator on the canner. Here's the regulator, and I don't want to turn it to vent. I need to leave it on can to keep from getting burnt. You could use a towel or something to put it on, but and I put it right in the middle on can. And now I hit the button, and it's going to go to the next step. So it's going to can for 25 minutes once this pops up right here. So it's not quite where it needs to be. Once it finally gets to where it needs to be, there's going to be a little knob that pops up that keeps me from opening the canner. And then it'll start counting down from 25 minutes. But this has to pop up first. I just want to show you that this little button popped up, and now it is no longer venting. The venting has stopped, and now it is actually going to count down because I said I needed to get to pressure and stay at pressure for 25 minutes. So now it'll start counting down. All right, we've moved to the next step. The 25 minutes are up, and it just beeped and it says cool. And so this little button up here is going to stay locked until the pressure comes back down to atmosphere. And then this will drop down and I'll be able to open it. But this honestly could take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, depending on, how warm the kitchen is, how long it takes for this pressure to release. But it is definitely in the cool down phase. So we will end here and I will bring you back when it's time to open these up and get it out. Good morning, everyone. It is the next morning, and y'all, we didn't take these jars out of this pressure canner. It says that it's done now. The last time I talked to you, it said it was cooling. It now says it's done, and I hope it's done since it's the next morning. But anyway, we're going to unlock it. We're going to get this lid off. We're going to take these jars out. Well, I don't guess I need my tongs because it's the next morning. All right. But you know what? They are still warm. Actually, they're still very warm. Interesting. Anyway, so there's my little jar of beans. I think I could take 2 at a time. Y'all, don't they look good? And yes, they have a little brownish tint to them, and that's because I use apple cider vinegar, which we don't care about the tint, we care about the taste. So these beans are going to sit here. I'm going to probably leave them here for a couple of days to make sure that they're nice and sealed. And they look sealed. The tops are all sunk in, but we want to make sure we have a great seal on these beans before I store them away and I take my eye off of them for a very long time. But these look good, y'all. They look really good. For the greens, here they are in the bags. So I have a bag here that's about a half a meal. And in this bag here, there's a whole meal for my family. I just put them in a Ziploc bag. I put some of the, what we call pot liquor on it, or the juice from the greens. And I got it laying flat, and we're going to freeze it flat just like this. So I got a meal and a half of the greens. I got my dates on it. We're going to lock those away. Well, that's it for today. I'm finished canning my beans as well as my greens. Those greens will be put in the freezer until a later date. These beans will be put away, but I got to do some FIFO, y'all. First in, first out. And I still have a ton of beans left from last year. So we will be enjoying those beans first before we move to these. But that's it. If you enjoyed this video, if you found it informative, if it helped you in any way, please consider giving me a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. Over the next few weeks, I will continue to show videos on how I'm preserving those pounds and pounds and pounds of harvest that we've been pulling in from the garden over the last few weeks. So until next time, and I hope there will be a next time that you hang out with me, Kim, at Kim's Cozy Corner. Bye.